Good morning and happy Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. We hope you enjoyed our guest reader Izzy last week. She did such a great job reading for us. So this week we are going to read the first part of Keeker and the Sugar Shack. This is a two-part series, so we'll read chapters 1 and 2 this week and then join us again next week for chapters 3, 4, and 5. Chapter 1. This is Catherine Corey Keegan Dana, but everyone calls her Keeker. Keeker lives in Vermont with her mom, her dad, 5 dogs, 2 cats, a goat, a parakeet, a hamster, a goldfish, and a pony named Plum. Keeker is almost 10. Her pony Plum is nearly 9, but Plum is so bossy, you'd think she was the older one. Every year, as the snow melts and the rain sets in, Vermont gets very muddy. So muddy, in fact, that everyone calls it mud season. During mud season, the dirt roads get thick and gooey. Cars get stuck, trucks get stuck, even tractors get stuck. It's too muddy for Keeker and Plum to go riding, so Keeker has to stay indoors a lot. It wouldn't be so bad if she had brothers or sisters, but since she doesn't, it is so boring. There isn't even anyone to play Yahtzee with. Schluck, schluck, schluck. That's what it sounds like when Plum walks from one side of the field to the other. No matter how many times Keeker suds her up and rinses her off, Plum still ends up with mud all the way up past her knees, like socks. And every time Plum tries to dig around for some delicious grass, all she gets is mud. Plum is so bored that she started chewing on the fence posts. Sometimes they give her lip splinters, but she doesn't care. At least it's something to do. One Saturday, after it had been raining a cold, dreary rain for what seemed like forever, the sun peeked out, just a little. Keeker was upstairs running around with pantyhose on her head, pretending to have long braids like Laura Ingalls Wilder. 3 of the dogs were wearing pantyhose hair too. "Mom!" yelled Keeker, "the sun is out. Can we go riding, please? Please? Please?" "Well," said Mrs. Dana, "I'm not sure. The horses are so dirty." But with Keeker wearing pantyhose on her head, it was hard to say no. Mrs. Dana could tell that her daughter was going to lose her marbles if she had to spend even one more second inside. "Okay," said Mrs. Dana, "go get your pony." "Yay," said Keeker, and she hurried outside to catch Plum and bring her back to the barn. Finally, thought Plum. Usually she tried to sneak out of going riding, but not today. Mud season was so boring that even Plum was dying to go out. Chapter 2. Keeker and her mom washed off Plum and Mrs. Dana's big horse Pansy. They put on saddles and bridles, and the 4 of them set off down the road. Glop, glop, glop. "It's like riding through peanut butter," laughed Keeker. "More like a nasty, marshy bog," grumped Plum as she picked her way through the muck. Plum had never actually seen a nasty, marshy bog, but she imagined it would be just like this. It took them almost an hour to get to their nearest neighbor, the Doolin Dairy. The dairy was kind of stinky, lots of cows and cow pies, but Mr. Doolin himself was very nice and smelled good, like green grass and pipe smoke. Normally, Mr. Doolin didn't say much, but on this day he rushed out of the house waving his arms to talk to them. "You'll never believe it," said Mr. Doolin. "Someone bought Crab Apple Hill Farm." Crab Apple Hill Farm was an old falling down house with an old falling down barn. It sat by itself up on the hill, and for as long as Keeker could remember, it had been covered in brambles and scary looking. Who would want to live there, Keeker wondered. It gave her the creeps just thinking about it. "Yuck, crab apples," sniffed Plum. Crab apples were small and sour and wormy. Plum preferred the fat pink apples that grew on her tree. Keeker had a million questions. Who bought that old farm? Had they lived there long? What were they going to do up there? Didn't they care that it was scary? Did they have kids? Or horses? Mr. Doolin leaned in close to Keeker. All I know, he said, is that it's a woman, probably about your grandma's age. All alone on that old rundown farm? No way, thought Keeker. Weird. That night, the rain came back. It fell and fell and fell, clattering against the window panes like pebbles. The wind howled. Keeker tossed and turned under her covers. Every time she tried to close her eyes and go to sleep, all she could picture was that creepy old house up on the hill. She tried to imagine the old lady who lived there, and in Keeker's imagination, the old lady didn't look like her grandma. She looked like a witch. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week, and we hope to see you again next week as we keep reading Keeker and the Sugar Shack. Have a great weekend.